You are about to enter a highly creative zone. It's time to unleash your inner artist. Keep your colors flowing, your vocals serenading, and your feet tapping. This is The Creator with Jasmine Kai.
So, as promised, I have a very interesting guest in studio today. You know, I love to bring you everything creative, and I like to sort of push the bounds of of what you generally would define as creative. So I had to bring on somebody very interesting. Welcome to the show, Gora.
Thank you very much, Jasmine. It's fantastic to be here.
It's so awesome to have you. So for those of you who don't know you, could you give us a little bit of a introduction to who you are and maybe where people would know you from?
Well, I'm a school teacher to start off with.
Okay.
I know that doesn't sound exciting at all, but I'm also an ex-professional footballer.
Okay.
Played many years ago in the Federation Football League, Bluebells United, Vereniging Old Boys, played for Swaraj, then went on to Dynamos, and then when I really hit my straps, as many people would think, is when I landed up at Orlando Pirates.
That's awesome.
Almost, 30 years ago?
Wow.
Sounds a long time ago. But when I think about it, it feels like it's just yesterday.
Yeah.
Especially that feeling of running out in front of all those people. So that's two parts to me. And of course, I've recently authored a book.
Yes.
Which is based on my story. It's a memoir. And I suppose that's what's keeping me really busy.
Okay.
And relevant right now.
I like that. So you said you are a teacher. What did or do you teach?
So I'm just, I teach little children.
Okay.
And I'm
the nice ones.
The last one. So I'm of the generation where we are primary school teachers.
Okay.
Whatever is put out in front of us,
okay,
we teach it.
Yes.
But I am actually a physical education specialist teacher.
Oh, wow.
Who is able to teach across.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm able to teach pretty much most of the subjects, but languages are my favorite.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
I'm fluent in Afrikaans.
Okay.
I hail from Vereniging.
I'm not fluent in Afrikaans.
It's a survival skill.
I think
you
so.
needed to know Afrikaans.
I think so.
If you wanted to survive.
That's amazing. What about languages drew you in?
I'm an avid reader.
Okay.
I credit that to my English teacher many, many years ago in Vereniging, Mr. Y. Khan, Jacob Khan, originally from Ladysmith.
Wow.
Came to Roshni, taught me there, went back to Ladysmith a couple of months ago. I dropped off my memoir.
Okay.
I mentioned him in the book.
Oh,
He's
awesome.
the one who dropped a book called The Fixer by Bernard Malamud.
Okay.
It's about the Bolsheviks in the time of the First World War.
Okay.
Love the book, and I've been reading ever since.
Wow, reading is such an awesome hobby to have because it sort of takes you everywhere.
Yeah, reading it's vicarious knowledge. It's not first-hand knowledge.
Yeah.
So we're visiting places through words and books.
Yes.
So you're creating pictures in your mind pretty much all of the time.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to get to a place where I can see all of these things that I've read about firsthand.
Yes, that would be amazing.
Travel, and that will be just awesome.
That would be amazing. So I was going to ask how the transition, or was there a natural transition going from being a football player to being an author? I see this reading is something that has been in you, so I could guess it's probably yes, but what was that like, just going from such a different career into writing about your life and your experiences? And yeah.
There's two parts. There's something that happened to me. There's an incident that I wrote about on Facebook many years ago. I never knew that I had a skill for writing. I discovered that about 5 or 6 years ago when I started writing about my mum, who had passed on about 2015. I wrote a tribute then wrote about a few things that happened at home. And on Facebook, where I was still very new, there were many likes and people sort of acknowledged the way I was saying things. I was saying things, writing the way I speak. And my Facebook profile sort of grew. And then I started writing a little more, and I discovered that I had a talent for writing. I never knew.
That's amazing.
I may have shown signs of that, but in the way we were taught many, many years ago, I will say I came up through the Department of Indian Affairs.
Okay.
Right. So in the apartheid days, I think you may.
Yes. I was born in 98.
98.
Yes. So I'm.
You are born free.
I'm born free. Yes.
So you may. So for the older ones, we had a department, the Indian Affairs, which was House of Delegates, and then Colored Affairs, House of Representatives. That type of a thing. So that's where I think at the time my teachers were too busy teaching, equipping us with the skills of going to university without exploring other talents.
Absolutely.
I may have been artistic.
Yeah.
I may have been musical. I may have been something else. But hey, listen, you needed to get your degree or your diploma so that you can forge a life in future. So I didn't have anyone that could push me there. So I discovered that many decades later.
Yeah.
And I write as I speak pretty much most of the time. But when I write my memoir, it wasn't as easy as I thought it might be.
Okay.
Because then I discovered that life was a battle.
Yes.
And like Siddhartha Gautama said, life can be a struggle. Well, I paraphrase, right? Life is full of suffering.
Yeah.
That's what he says in one of his tenets, I think. And it was quite difficult.
Yes.
In many aspects.
Sure. That's, I think, sort of looking at your life in that lens and having to, I guess, kind of collectively pull your experiences and actually look at them from a bird's eye view can be difficult. It can also be, I guess, a form of expression and maybe even a form of therapy, actually seeing your life from that space. I don't think a lot of people get that opportunity if they aren't doing something like this. So I can imagine there was a lot sort of that went into writing and maybe a lot of feeling as well that went into actually experiencing your life that way. So that's a very amazing thing to do and accomplish and put out there.
Jasmine, can I just pick up on that?
Of course.
So you write about something that's been traumatic for you in the past, and you have to visit that moment.
Yes.
And you sit in that moment. And while you're in that moment, you enter the dungeon of darkness.
Yes.
And then you're now starting to pick the words. Okay, so Jasmine's going to read it. Robin's going to read it. Shane's going to read this book. Who am I writing it for?
Yeah.
Will it resonate with them? So I start looking for the words.
Yeah.
And then you dive even deeper because now you're reaching into a passive vocabulary, a vocab that's somewhere there you don't know. It's a sea of words that you don't know is there. So you dig even deeper. And sometimes you can sit in that space for days.
Yes.
And it affects those around you. And then all of a sudden you're out of it. And then you're into a happy time where you're playing in front of 50,000 people. But it's life, I suppose.
Yes,
it goes up and down. It's like a heartbeat, isn't it? It's up and down. And if it's just a stable or a flat line, life's pretty boring, basically.
Yes. I think there's definitely something to be said, though, about about the kind of bravery, I guess, that it takes to visit that, feel those things, revisit those memories, re-feel those emotions, and then actually put it to paper and put it out there for people to to read and actually see and experience, because I think a lot of people in our lives maybe get bits and pieces of our experiences. Some people know a lot more about the darker sides of life that we've experienced. But nobody really gets that full picture until you've written it down that way. So I think there's definitely something very brave in doing that, in changing that, like, I guess changing the narrative to a more broader view of who you are. So like you said, to some you're a teacher, to others you're a football player. But this gives you that like proper view. This is who I am. You
sum it up so well. When you write about yourself and you try to be as honest as you can, I don't think you can be totally honest.
Yeah.
But you are as honest as possible.
Yes.
And it makes you vulnerable.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you're opening yourself up to the whole world.
Yes.
Things have happened at school. You wonder if your wife should know about it. Well, if Munira is listening, that's my wife, then she would tell you that I slept for a week on the couch. Hey, a lot happened before we got married.
Yeah.
And you have these crushes and on people and people that are out of your reach, right?
Yes.
Like I was a real dork, and I speak about that, and people can't really believe that I didn't have the confidence to ask a girl out at school. I didn't. I did it once. I write about it in my book, and I was badly rejected. And oh my goodness! Rejection is tough to get used to. Well, you can't get used to rejection. So that's the one part. So you open yourself up.
Yeah.
It's amazing that I'm telling you something that happened almost 40 years ago. I can remember it like yesterday. And then as you go on in life, there's things that have happened in your life, which, because you're a footballer and you become a public figure,
yes,
people know about it.
Yes.
And they expect you to write about it.
Yes.
So I can't gloss over that.
Yeah.
And it may not be a good thing, but it needs to be said, because if I don't write about it, you'll say, hey, Gora, you remember that incident that took place there?
Yes.
You don't say much about that. You're very selective about what you write. So I think vulnerable, you feel naked. Yeah. You feel exposed. People look at you and they say, and if they've read the book, we know you, we know Munira, we know Shazia, your eldest daughter, we know what happened at college, and in a nice way, you can start a conversation.
Absolutely.
And you can start speaking about, and someone will come to me and say, you write about it once I had a similar incident.
Yes.
You say you were rejected by, I write about the first time about Roshan when she rejected me, and I don't think I was in that category. She was just way, way ahead of all of us. But my best friend Kantan says, well, my first name's Ahmed, and Gora is my second name. Gora is very much associated with football. He says, Ahmed, she really likes you. I say, no, I don't think so. He says, no, listen, you have to do something. I say, no, Kantan, Kantan was my best friend. He was a real snazzy dresser. He could dance like Michael Jackson. He could do all of these things, and he was popular with it. And he says, no, she really likes. I say, Kantan, listen, I'm not. And anyway, I pluck up the courage one Friday morning after the first bell, and I follow her around, and I say, hands in the pocket and fiddling with my hair, and the words are struggling to come out and say, would you like to go out with me sometime? And the laugh, it was really, no.
Oh, no.
I don't think so, but I have a boyfriend. Okay, fine. So two things. Devastated that I was rejected.
Yes.
But happy that I was rejected to, because what do I now do when I have a girlfriend? What do I do in Roshni with a girlfriend? Where do we go to? Do we go to the cafe and share a Coke? What do we do? Anyway, so I walk away, and at some point I turn around and I look, and she's looking back at me and she's smiling. It made it feel better because, no, it wasn't so bad. I still have a chance. No, I didn't have a chance.
I love that. So we have been chatting to an absolute legend, Gora Ebrahim, and we've just been chatting a little bit about his memoir that he has written. And I kind of want to change direction a little bit in conversation. As somebody who has chronic pain and chronic illness from an injury past, I mean, I want to chat to you because I know that you've also obviously experienced injuries as a professional athlete. Did you find that there was a big difficulty in transitioning from a life post-injury to a life after injury? Because I don't think this is something that a lot of professional athletes or people who are going into a sport really think about, is the long-term effects of an injury and how your life can change afterwards.
So the landscape of professional football has changed.
Okay.
When we were professional footballers, it wasn't as it was today.
Okay.
We were semi-professional. Mm-hmm. So we had to hold on to jobs during the day, and then we played football in the afternoon.
Sure.
Because it was difficult more than anything. So if I have to compare to what it is today they are full-time professionals.
Yes.
They may play twice a day.
Yeah.
They may eat at the club, and so that's their vocation.
Yes,
if you like. So let me contrast it with where I was in my space. I went to college, became a teacher, always played football while I was a teacher in Pretoria. I then played for Swaraj in Indonesia, but they make it very easy because they arrange my lifts and they take me home, and I'm from Vereeniging, but I've spent my time for Bluebells and for Swaraj in that 4 years. So they take me up and down. So I'm preparing. I know that I'd like to play professional football at some time, but professional football is not going to sustain me.
Yes.
I need to hold down a day job. So when I break onto the professional scene in a big way, and I don't want to make it sound like the Federation League wasn't as big as the other league, but it wasn't, because we didn't have the resources that the NSL had.
Yeah.
The Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates, Morocco Swallows, that was the mainstream league because of the resources that they had. Then there was Beria and Swaraj and Bluebells and Manning Rangers that played in the Indian coloured predominant league. And I know now I'm going very far back.
That's
long way back before your time. So in 1999, we all come together.
Yeah.
And just before we all have the opportunity to vote in 94, before we come free, we all played together for the very first time.
Okay.
But even then, for the first 4 or 5 years, we're still part-time professionals.
Okay.
In that time, I suffered a knee injury. I had a few, so it wasn't so bad with it in my situation.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go to where it is today.
Yeah. My
knee injury, cortisone in my knee. It's okay for 6 months.
Okay.
And it's okay. I pull a hamstring. You're out for 3 or 4 weeks. You come back. The challenge is you need to win your place back. It's tough, but there's pressure on you to do that. But if we still have time, I'd like us just to speak about what it was playing professional football and holding out a full-time job.
Yes, absolutely.
Because that was tough.
That sounds impossible, actually.
So, I joined Orlando Pirates.
Okay.
In 1993. Every week we're playing in front of 50, 60,000 people. I kid you not. Pirates were so big. There was no DSTV like it is today. Games were not on on the box every week. So if you want to watch Pirates, you need to come to.
You need to go, yeah.
And if there's a game, it's one or two teams. But all the games are not televised. So we literally flying around the country, playing in different parts of South Africa. But I'm still a teacher. So
Sure.
I could be in Durban, fly out on Sunday morning, play the match Sunday afternoon, fly back on Sunday evening, and then prepare for school the next day.
Oh my goodness.
And then after school finishes at 3, we've got to be at training at 4 o'clock the next day. So then we train for 3 or 4 hours and we're back. And that was my first year of marriage. It was extremely tough.
Yeah.
And it was taxing, and a situation like that, it could have dire consequences for a new marriage. But we sort of weathered that boat. Today, it is different.
Yeah.
Today, they're full-time professionals. Not all of them are always playing, but they're all getting paid.
Yeah.
But the big boys are playing. The players that are in the front, the big names of football, are playing every week. And when they do suffer an injury, they have the support structures that are in place. They have a physio, they have a doctor, they're able to rehabilitate. So it's easier to come back today from an injury.
Yes.
However, the psychological part of it, it just depends differently on the player and how soon he can get back. It's easier now.
Yeah.
Because the game has evolved because of money and resources. The game has evolved, and we're trying to catch up with the rest of the world, and in many ways we have. It's easier now.
Yeah.
And players have the support systems in place. They're even taught how to save money and look and create a life after football. It wasn't like that for us, and there are many sad stories about players who squandered their wealth.
Yeah.
They never thought it would come to an end. Players who at the top of the game had career-ending injuries.
Yes.
In the 1 week, they were, I suppose they were the cat's whiskers, and a month later, they realized they're never going to play football again.
Yes.
And that leads to all sorts of substance abuse.
Yes.
To maybe drugs, to alcohol. Many players have gone in that direction, and I'm very sorry that it's happened to them. And a lot of them don't have the support. A lot of them my age right now, that's down in the doldrums. I say, Jasmine, that I'm one of the fortunate ones.
Sure, that is so true. I think it's maybe something that is hopefully more widely taught now. The realities of being an athlete, the realities of the length of a career in sport is very different to the length of a career in a different field that isn't so taxing on the body. And I think injuries are such an interesting space to look at, because it's not always something you can fully be in control of. There's things you can do to try recover better, or there's things you can do to try and strengthen parts of yourself to avoid bad injuries. But there can always be a point where there's an injury, and that injury can now change what your life looks like.
Yeah.
So I think, that's a very, very unfortunate side to sport. But I think you've done an amazing job adjusting. You've done an amazing job continuing and sort of having a career after your career and moving forward.
Jasmine, I just want to pick up on something, on some of the things that you said right now. Something comes to mind very quickly. As a school teacher, a lot of my kids, my pupils, my learners know that I come from a background of football, and I'll ask them, so guys, what would you like to be one day? The boys and many goals.
Yeah.
The hand shoot are professional footballers.
Yeah.
That's what they want to be. Not tennis players, not rugby players, professional footballers. Because of the glory that football offers, because of the money and the lifestyles, it's tough. To get to the top, I think it's easier to become a doctor, much easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's easier to go to varsity. You just need to work hard, and things could happen for you.
Yes.
You work really hard.
Yes.
If you wired that way, you're okay. You can have a tertiary education. But to become a professional athlete, you can train as hard as you want to, and sometimes it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And when you do get to the top, you have to be, your mind and body, it's got to be in total sync.
Yes.
You need to envision what you want to do, and your body's got to respond to it. It's not that, it could be very, very difficult.
Yeah.
I don't like to use the word difficult. It's challenging. And at some point it could be impossible. Now, I speak as an Indian, someone who comes from an Indian background, as a quote Indian unquote background.
Yeah.
There's less of us in the top league. It's become more and more difficult because our parents don't see a future in football.
Yeah.
They don't think that we're going to become a footballer, so they usher us in a different direction.
Yes.
Academics, listen, you need to make a living. Football is not going to get you anywhere. So there's less of us in that space, and it's tough.
Yeah.
And we don't have any role models. And I'm speaking now, and I'm speaking from an Indian, coming from the marginalized. In the football world, we say the Indians and the coloreds and the whites have become marginalized. And now I don't want to become too political, but there's less of us in that space. And it's becoming harder and harder to break into that space.
Absolutely.
In fact, I don't know any of learners of Indian descent that are in the big leagues right now. It's becoming tougher and tougher. It was like that when I was playing. You need to be exceptional, and irrespective of what's happening in your life, when you put on the shirt, you have to perform.
Yes.
And as a minority, there's extra pressure for you to perform a little better.
Do you think there's anything that, say, young football players who are Indian or are of any of the marginalized groups, do you feel there's anything that they can do to sort of better their chances or maybe up their game to actually be able to get to that pro level and actually sort of break through this barrier that we have at the moment?
That, in an interview, I did an interview with radio with Robert Marawa the other day.
Okay.
And that same message came up, and they wanted to know why aren't there more Indian players, because we have a rich history of football. I can start naming players right now from the 60s and 70s, the Durham Mohans of the world, the Sega Sylvester and Lynx Pediachis. These were household names. They could probably, and many people will tell you, if the older fans of football at the time will tell you that these players could have played overseas at any given time. They were that talented. So a caller called in and he said, where are the Guna Pariachis of the world and Suli Bamjis and Zain Musas and perhaps Gora Ebrahims of the world? Where are they at the moment? And my answer was that maybe the cultures.
Okay.
There is a clash of cultures. We come from a culture where we do things a little different.
Yes.
And we need to be given that space to
Absolutely.
grow into it. And I give you the examples. Let's say Mo Salah goes to Liverpool. Mo Salah is Muslim. He eats differently.
Yeah.
He prays. He fasts. And if Liverpool does not open themselves up to Salah, who is different from Steven Gerrard or the others, we're all not the same. So what does Liverpool do for Mo Salah? They give him, they just broaden their space of tolerance.
Yeah.
And they open it, and Mo Salah flourishes. But if they don't, Mo Salah can't.
Yes.
He can't do that. So my answer to Robert is that the local teams have got to open themselves up a lot more to where Gora Ebrahim comes from. Gora fasts. Gora doesn't eat beef, for example. He eats halal. He eats this when he's traveling. So now they create that space for him.
Yes.
And yes, if he's got the talent and they back him, yes, he's going to do it. But if they're going to do like a school system where they're just going to usher them all in one, herd them all, okay, guys, this is what we're all eating.
Yes, yeah.
So let me tell you, can I share a little story?
Absolutely.
Dashi Bektawa was a famous goalkeeper from Pretoria.
Okay.
Played for Orlando Pirates, played for Arcadia, and Dashi and I played together. We get called up to play for the Transvaal team, not Gauteng, so long before you were born, Jasmine. So we get called up for the Transvaal Super C team. Now this Transvaal Super C team was loaded with superstars. Shoes Michelle, Dr. Kumalo, Neil Tovey's brother Mark, Eric Tinkler, who's now it was just a who's who, and I'm in that team as one of the promising young amateurs that's breaking into football. But with two players of Indian heritage or descent at the time. At the morning, we spent a whole week in downtown Joburg. Joburg was a wonderful place to be at that time. I'm sure it still is, but it's changed now. So we in the hotel, we're staying there. I got a week off from school. And on the morning, when we were going to play the tournament, there was Transvaal, Free State, Natal, and Western Province. They order food for everyone.
Okay.
We're sitting in the Carlton Center in this really nice restaurant called the Coffee Ace.
Okay.
Beautiful restaurant. Carlton Center was the place to be in Joburg. Okay, so we're all sitting there, all the stars, we're all dressed in beautiful. And our coach at the time was Augusto Palacios. Augusto Palacios, well, he's a famous coach right now. Everyone knows him. He became the national coach a couple of years later. And he says, well, he calls the waiter, he says, everyone's going to have steak. And everyone will have this. And everyone will have that.
Oh.
Dashi is Hindu.
Oh, no.
I'm Muslim. It's not halal.
Yeah.
He can't eat beef.
Yes.
So we're sitting close to each other. He says, Gora, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
I say, listen, we have to speak up.
Yeah.
And Dashi goes, Mr. Palacios, I have a problem. Dashi is a celebrated goalkeeper. He's afraid to raise his hand because of his religious affiliation. And he says, I can't eat this. What do you mean?
Ugh.
Everyone eats steak.
Yeah.
That's a pre-match meal for everyone. And he walks away. And I say, Mr. Palacios, this is not halal. Halal? What is that?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, well, you know.
Wow.
So there we go. I'm not finishing the story. I can't finish the story.
That's okay. I actually have a little voice note that was sent in by a listener. So I'm just going to connect here so that you can hear it. They have a two-part question.
Hey, Jazz, congratulations on getting one of the legends of South African sport on your show. I think I need to use the opportunity to ask a sport-related question, and I'm sure Gora gets asked the same question wherever he goes. But I'd like to know, who does he consider to be the best South African footballer of all generations, of all time, and who's the most talented? For me, it's easy. I'll say Benny would be the best. I'd like his opinion. But the most talented might not be the best or the highest achieving. Because in sport, you need application, or you need talent, you need opportunity and luck. And in his era, up to the 90s, early 90s, South Africans didn't have the opportunities that they have today. So there must have been very talented players that never made it the way players today have the opportunity to do. So it's a two-part question. Sorry for rambling. It's a two-part question. Who is South Africa's best player, and who is South Africa's most talented that he has seen?
So, Jasmine, you know we're hearing aid.
Yes.
And the gentleman, so you're just going to help me.
Yes,
so
I will help you.
Did we say who's South Africa's best?
Who's South Africa's best, and who's South Africa's most talented player?
Oh my goodness! So, at currently or in
your experience, who you've seen, there may not even be a household name.
So, so firstly, to the gentleman that called in, thank you for the question. Now you're making me think very hard, and the way he phrases his question, he knows his football.
Yes.
So I need to be very careful what I'm going to say right now. So I've had the opportunity to play with some really, really talented players. When I first made my debut in 1982, I played against two players who I thought were out of this world, Keith America and Calvin Peterson. I thought they were superb, but I was very young. They ran rings around me. I admit that. And then I grew up with a player called Augustine Makalakalani, and Augustine eventually ended up at FC Zurich. But the player that I played with and against, perhaps the best player, and best in talent is two different criteria, right? I thought talent and probably the best player that I ever played with was a gentleman called Shoes Michel.
Okay.
Shoes played, I think he came from Soweto, played for Blackpool, and then he ended up playing overseas in Turkey. And the reason I say that, he could do everything with the ball. There were players that were so talented dribblers like Dr. Kumalo and Ace Menini that could really dribble. And there were others that could really pass the ball around. Players that I'm thinking of the Malawian Ernest Charwali, who could really pass the ball. But someone who could really influence the game was Shoes Michel, and very quiet person, extremely talented. He had the knack of taking on players and causing real mayhem. I was able to play against him. I was able to play with him. And in the year that we won the African Cup of Nations in 1995, I thought Shoes Michel was the standout player for me. And also now that I'm also a little biased because of his personality. He was so humble.
We love that. Love a humble person.
Humility.
Yeah.
He shied away from the limelight. But with the ball at his feet, I didn't think anybody came close at the time. But I came from a golden generation of players. And Shoes stood out. I don't know at the moment. Talent, South Africa has an abundance of talent. Problem is the talent is just not nurtured.
Yeah.
It is just not looked after. And at the time, maybe the talent was more raw. It was more from the streets, from the dusty streets, and with the supporters were able to identify with the players a little more. everybody had a favorite in every team.
Yeah.
They could identify with certain players. I thought Shoes Michel, talent in abundance. If he'd gone overseas at an earlier age, he may have been maybe the biggest player that we ever had. But Benny McCarthy was different because Benny could do less than Shoes Michel, but he could do something that Shoes couldn't do, was to put the ball in the back of the net and score goals. So for players like that, and we pay millions of pounds, that's what we pay for them. So raw talent as well, came from the Cape Flats, had this resilience to become a little more, get himself out of, and I don't like to use the word, I won't say gutter, but the best players in the world come from those surroundings.
Yes.
They come from those beginnings. We speak of Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, the Brazilian players. They come from there, and they have this appetite to want to be a little more than just an ordinary player, because they're dragging their whole family out of that life.
Yeah.
Think of Romario, for example. I could name a few more. Maybe talent, two of the most talented, that best and talented. Benny was extremely talented too. I think with and he went a lot further. Maybe the only player that won the Champions League, and now highly decorated as a coach at Manchester United and things. But that's not why I say that. But he was extremely talented, able to put the ball in the back of the net. Also, I have a song called "Benny's in the 18 area." I don't know, Benny's in the 18 area. So, and he's got a lot of spunk. Oh.
So we've been having a really, really awesome chat. Such an awesome conversation. So many rich memories, and I just really appreciate you coming on and sharing all of this with us. Your book has been out since last year, correct?
Yes.
And where can people find it?
So this week I'm here in this weekend I'm here in Durban. Tomorrow there's the Phoenix Legends, the expats are having a football tournament, but it's just not a tournament. We're also raising some money for the underprivileged, and we're putting out hampers, hundreds of hampers to hand out. I'm playing for a team from Mangaung in Bloemfontein, and there's Johannesburg teams. All of us getting together, playing a bit of football, and my book will be there
awesome.
on sale. So that's the first part, and then we'll be spending the whole day in Phoenix. Tomorrow evening, the Tongaat Crusaders are having their 75th reunion, and I'm one of the attractions.
I love it.
I'm one of the special guests myself, with Mr. Buddy Govender, who's my good friend, and my other friend that's sitting right next to me, Mr. Robin Sulal, is going to be there too, and we're hoping to have a few some radio coverage there too. My book will then be launched officially in Durban.
Okay.
Although it has been I have brought it to Durban before, but it will be officially amongst the Tongaat Crusaders legends.
Okay.
And that will be at a venue in Tongaat, and on Sunday we're playing a testimonial game against the Tongaat over 60s. And then hopefully by then, all my books will be sold.
Guys, go out and buy all the books.
No, I think already now, I think most of the books, it was difficult carrying them, but I've signed a deal with Blue Weaver.
Okay.
And Blue Weaver will be launching the book at the end of June. So it will be in the bookstores.
Awesome.
They're taking orders right now. So that's the one part.
Yeah.
And of course, we're working on other ways in getting my book giving my book a bit more exposure. And of course, my good friend Robin Sulal is sitting right next to me here. We have got serious matters to discuss, both on his book, Radiocracy. Did I pronounce it right, Rob? And of course, my book called No Regrets.
Awesome.
You know, we all do have regrets.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
There's genuine.
I don't believe in regrets.
I like that. Then you have to read my book.
I think so. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners before we wrap this up?
No. More than anything, I'd like to say thank you to you for having me in your studio. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you.
It's been a pleasure on my end.
And my good friend Robin, who's sitting right next to me, thank you for arranging for me to meet so many people. I have to say that without him, I would not have been in many places. So thank you, Robin. Thank you, Jasmine. And
it's such a pleasure.